A lot of games have this one very specific category of items. Sometimes they're called charms or talismans, or they might be presented as rings or badges, and they don't just exist in one genre, they're pretty much present in all types of games. Elden Ring, Subnautica, Mario Wonder, and even Stardew Valley. But across all these different types of games, they always serve the same purpose. I generally refer to these types of items as charms. That's what they're called in Hollow Knight, and I think it's the most fitting name for them. So anyways, why are these so great? Why am I saying they're amazing in all capital letters? I've never put a word in all caps in any of my other video titles. Well, a big part of creating satisfying gameplay is making sure that the player feels like their choices matter. A choice can mean anything from choosing to go to a certain place on the map to something almost completely unconscious, like dodging an enemy's attack at a certain time. With charms, this aspect of choice is a major part of their design. You can typically only have a few equipped at a time, so the player will have to check every once in a while to make sure that the charms they have on are suitable for the situation they're in. So that sort of scarcity is part of what makes it an effective design pattern, but the actually interesting part of this is what charms actually do. Typically, they'll have some small effect on some aspect of gameplay. That's a very broad explanation, so let's look at Hollow Knight and Elden Ring specifically. These two games, despite how they look, are actually really similar from a combat perspective, which leads to things like the Hollow Knight charm, Fury of the Fallen, which makes you do more damage when you're low on health. Kinda sounds like the Elden Ring talisman, Red Feathered Branch Sword, which makes you do more damage when you're low on health. The Hollow Knight charm, Shaman Stone, which makes spells do more damage. Kinda sounds like the Elden Ring talismans, Graven School Talisman, Graven Mask Talisman, Faith's Canvas Talisman, and Flock's Canvas Talisman, which all make spells do more damage. Thorns of Agony, which damages enemies that attack you, kinda sounds like the Minecraft enchantment Thorns, which damages enemies that attack you. The Minecraft enchantment system is basically kind of a charm system. Anyways, now that I've checked all the charms on the Hollow Knight wiki for similarities to Elden Ring, I've noticed that it says at the bottom of the page that this whole system was inspired by badges in Paper Mario. I haven't played any of those games, but I have played Mario Wonder, which also has badges, and they're pretty effective there too, but with it being a platformer, they're very different from what you'd see in Hollow Knight or Elden Ring. This brings me to another point on why charms are so amazing, which is the fact that they let the developer play around with ideas that can completely change the player's experience without it needing to be something they have to deal with balancing for the entire game. For example, in Mario Wonder, the wall climb jump badge lets you jump straight up a wall the first time you land on it, rather than always jumping away from it like you normally would. In some situations, this will make jumps much easier to perform, but in other situations, it could be completely useless. This is sort of self-balancing because, yeah, some badges may be better for general use than others, but players naturally are still going to want to explore their options and experience the unique effects of each badge. But at the same time, there's also the complete opposite use case. The developer can make certain levels or certain challenges in which the player is specifically expected to use a certain badge. And this can be used to showcase its strengths, teach the player how they're supposed to use it, or just be a unique challenge. And this is exactly what the badge challenges in Mario Wonder do. They showcase the badge's strengths, teach you how to use them, and provide a unique challenge, which once you complete, you unlock that badge for general use in other levels. Probably the most clear example of this is the Dolphin Kick badge, which drastically improves the player's mobility underwater and is incredibly helpful for any levels involving water. I've been saying badge instead of charm for this entire paragraph because I'm mainly talking about Mario here, but that first half of what I said also applies to the other games I mentioned as well. The effects of charms might seem small, and they might just be a little extra upgrade or feature you can add to your arsenal, but some of them can be unique enough to completely change how you play. Take the Claw Talisman in Elden Ring. This talisman makes jump attacks deal 15% more damage. 15% might not sound like a lot, but trust me, in games like this, every percent of damage matters, which makes this one of the best general use talismans in the game, and is definitely going to make you do jump attacks a lot more frequently than you would otherwise. Another benefit of talismans that's more utilized in Elden Ring than the other games I've mentioned is that they can also have much more specific use cases, like the Exaltation talismans. In the case of the Kindred of Rot's Exaltation, you deal 20% more damage for 20 seconds when you poison or rot an enemy nearby, which can actually be decently useful because poison and rot are already pretty good things to have in your arsenal. The Aged One's Exaltation, on the other hand, is not decently useful because Madness doesn't affect like 95% of bosses, so it'll only really trigger if you proc Madness on yourself, in which case you're probably also proccing it on yourself in real life because of the amount of pre-fight buffing and preparation that you need for your one-shot build. But that is kind of the whole point of this paragraph. If you use a fast attacking weapon like claws or daggers, you might like the Godskin Swaddling Cloth, which basically heals you when you attack fast. If you're going up against a boss that does fire damage and you have one of the Flame Drake talismans, which increase your resistance to fire damage, now's the perfect time to use it. It's always a really good feeling for the player if they have a specific need for a certain talisman and they have the exact right one for the job. There are of course some more lame charms like the amber medallions in Elden Ring, which just give you more health and stuff, and the heirlooms, which just increase your stats, but despite these being so simple, they still feel good to find and use because of that feeling of scarcity that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. Sometimes all you need is a little bit more health or a little bit more strength, and that's when these kinds of talismans shine. Another part of this is, of course, where and when you find these. The Crimson Amber Medallion, which is the only talisman the player can start the game with, is a great one to give the player an impression of what talismans actually do. It increases health by 6%, which is a small but meaningful addition to your character. Obviously, the where and when can be simplified into stronger ones go later in the game and weaker ones go earlier in the game, but spacing is also important. The player shouldn't be picking up charms all over the place because that defeats the purpose of the scarcity, and all of the games I've mentioned do a good job of keeping their charms scarce enough that it always feels good to find one while making sure that they aren't so rare that the player forgets they exist. I've never played a game where this kind of system isn't effective. The only one I've heard that people have complaints about is the perk system in Dead by Daylight, but I don't really know enough about that to talk about it for more than like 30 seconds. There's 282 perks. Apparently a lot of them are mostly useless, and some of them are so strong that they're banned in tournaments. I will give the devs some credit for this though, because Dead by Daylight is technically a competitive game. It's a lot harder to make perks that are actually interesting without altering the balance so much that people complain. I consulted my friend who does play the game, and he agreed that the perk system is an absolute mess, for a number of reasons. Perks that are locked behind DLC paywalls with the only free way of getting them being a 4 in 300 chance every week, perks that get nerfed into the ground if people complain about them being too strong, and the fact that there's so many perks that it ends up being impossible to balance because they all interlock with each other, and multiple perks combined can be much stronger than the sum of their parts. If you, the viewer, are a Dead by Daylight player, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments. Another thing Hollow Knight and Elden Ring do to make charms more effective is starting with only a small amount of slots that they can be equipped in, and rewarding the player with more of them over time. In Elden Ring, you start with just one talisman slot, but you're almost guaranteed to get to the maximum of 4 before you're even halfway done with the game. In Hollow Knight, you start with 3 charm notches, and you can get up to 11, with each charm taking up 1 to 4 notches when equipped. I haven't played Hollow Knight in like 6 years, so I'm just gonna assume that it's similar to Elden Ring with that progression, and I'm not gonna act like I actually know what I'm talking about with that game, other than what I read off the wiki. Anyways, getting a talisman pouch in Elden Ring feels like a big deal in that first half of the game, especially since you'll only end up finding 3. The main benefit of them all being unlockable within the first half of the game is that it gives the player the feeling that they're getting stronger in the early game, but they also get plenty of time to experience that strength in the second half of the game, and they're able to experiment with plenty of different combinations once they find more talismans. A game you might not consider when thinking about this kind of system is Subnautica. Its charm system isn't super expansive, but it comes in the form of vehicle upgrades. The 3 vehicles in the game that can be upgraded are the Seamoth, which is basically the general use starter vehicle that's best for just getting around the shallower areas, the Cyclops, which is basically a giant underwater lifted Ford F-150 that you should never bring into the shallower areas of the map, and the Prawn Suit, which is how you're intended to be exploring the really deep caves of the game. The Seamoth has 4 upgrade slots, the Cyclops has 6, and the Prawn has 4 slots for upgrades and 2 which apply specifically to the arms. All of them have depth upgrade modules, which are pretty much required if you want to keep making progress towards beating the game, so that'll pretty much always be taking up 1 upgrade slot. But aside from that, there are upgrades like solar power for the Seamoth, thermal recharging for the Prawn Suit and Cyclops, a jetpack and grappling hook for the Prawn Suit. It's pretty much the same systems as in Elden Ring and Hollow Knight, just more specifically woven into the game's vehicles rather than being woven into the game's combat, because Subnautica doesn't really have combat. I'm bringing this up to, again, show that this kind of system can work in any genre of game. I could spend a paragraph talking about the rings in Stardew Valley, or the Baubles mod in Minecraft, or hell, I could spend an entire page talking about cyberware in Cyberpunk 2077, but I'm sure you get the point by now. These systems are so great because they add an extra layer of progression and player choice to an already existing gameplay loop in a way that's universally understood and generally not super intrusive to balancing. So that's it. If you know of any other games that have a charm system, whether it's good or not, let me know about it in the comments. Like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Sorry this one took like 2.5 months to get out. I've been busy with school, and I'll see you in the next one.